I was recently asked a question in preparation for a podcast that I'm going to be on in about a week actually from now. It's a pretty big podcast. Pretty excited about it. It's gonna be really fun. Um, and it's like kind of homeschooling centric, right? And the question is, what do you consider to be the three most important things you did as a homeschooling dad? And I think the answer to that question is number one, um, I sought out my own growth as a human being. I sought out my own growth. Um, One of the things that I see in the homeschooling world, I see a lot of parents, they go right into like trying to find curriculum, finding tutors, just creating a schedule, a strict schedule, and they just end up kind of boxing in their kids with this like really rigid homeschool schedule that looks a lot like what they do in government schools. And I find that to be an absolute tragedy. And for a number of reasons, I won't get into all of them, but for some obvious reasons, but also for the fact that that mom or dad is not realizing that the power that they have as the parent in that situation. And what is that power? That power is the power of modeling for their kids, to model something for their kids. Because one of the things that's super unappreciated, both in government schools and in a lot of homeschooling settings, is the power of like intrinsic learning. The power that if you can get a kid to fall in love with learning, and kind of have that self motivation to do it, I mean that's gold right there if you can get that. And a lot of times what parents will lean into is like, again, the curriculum, cramming, schedule, staying on task, homework, rigid, rigid, rigid. And usually that ends up squashing that desire to learn. It like robs a kid of their intrinsic motivation to want to learn. It just sucks. It's not fun. That's what government schools do, and a lot of homeschooling settings are doing that. And so instead, what you want to do is you want to develop that love of learning and inspire a kid. And how do you inspire them? You model. You model it for them. You model your own growth. You model your own journey. Um, and so that's one of the big things that I did was just modeling my own love of learning. I had to cultivate that in my life. I hated reading books. I've read 600 some odd books in the last, decade plus. Once I developed a love of learning in my own life, and my kids watched that, my kids went along for the ride. We created an environment, a culture in our home that's the thing that we do. We don't necessarily turn to TV, movies and TV for entertainment. We turn to books, and so that's one thing that I did that I think was really, really important. It's like, be about it. Don't talk about it, be about it, right? So, like, I was about it. I showed it to my kids. Another thing that I think I did that was really important was I allowed my kids to fail as often as I could. I allowed my kids to fail, and so like a book on that particular topic is "The Gift of Failure" by Jessica Lahey. I'll put the link in the description below, but it's an awesome book. My gosh. It goes through like the history of how we got where we are now, where like there's so many helicopter parents out there, and how helicopter parenting is so like well intentioned. Um, and so like the short of the history of it is you got kind of this like in society today nowadays we kind of like lean into our feelings on everything. If something feels right, it must be right. And so that's one of the guiding forces in our life is, oh, this feels right. Well, what feels right? If it feels right to come and protect our kid. And why does it feel right to come and protect our kid? Because we we've bought into the self-esteem movement, right? And so here, when we were kids in the 80s and 90s and whatever, um, we were fed this self-esteem stuff, and and so we were never really taught how to deal with rejection and deal with I don't know, even bullying or whatever. And so since we didn't like how that stuff made us feel, and that stuff felt like a personal attack on us and our identity and who we are, well, as parents, we want to protect our kids from that kind of stuff. And I'm giving you just like the real watered down version of it. And so it feels good to us to protect our kids at all costs because we don't want them to feel the same pain. That kind of pain, that kind of hurt, that kind of attack on their self esteem can be devastating, right? We don't want that. Um, and that's well intentioned, but it's like a huge, huge, huge mistake. The world of adulthood is full of rejection, full of it. It's not some safe space. It's not like some cozy little thing. It's full of it. You're gonna have tons of people honking at you, flipping you off, coworkers trying to compete against you and like try and leave you in the dust. You're gonna have bosses who talk bad to you. You're gonna whatever. There's gonna be all kinds of stuff, and we need to know how to deal with that stuff. But it even kind of goes a little bit beyond just like shielding our kids from words. But it's like we don't even let our kids fall anymore. Like, are we allowing our kids to scrape their knees, break bones, like, or are we just always there to protect them from any kind of pain or rejection or what? Okay. As a parent, I feel like I did a pretty dang good job of not shielding my kid from all of those things. And what it does for your child when you allow them to feel that is it shows them that they can deal with it. They can learn how to endure in the face of that kind of adversity, in the face of that kind of pain, in the face of that kind of rejection. And you do not want to rob them of that. It is like the book says, it is a gift. It is a gift. You do not want to take that from your kid. So those are two of them. And another one that I did, which kind of came in a little bit later in our homeschooling, was I really worked on mindset, like in particular a growth mindset. If I'm totally honest, when I first started homeschooling, I still had been, like I really bought into the whole like fixed mindset where you kind of feel like you're either born good at something or you're born bad at something. You're born smart or you're born dumb or whatever. I just felt like that was how it was for many different reasons. And so I kind of brought that in. Now I didn't go like telling my kid they're stupid or something like that, but it's just I believed in that, and that affected how I viewed my kids' education and their effort and the results of their effort, right? And so that would show up in like how I spoke to them, and I was constantly, as a parent, I was constantly speaking to them in a way where I was like cheering on the result of what they did rather than the effort. Because in reality, once I understood that a growth mindset is actually the key to your own growth and your own like future and what you can accomplish in life, it's also the same thing, the same key to your kids' future, their growth and all that. And so once I figured that out, then it was more speaking to their effort, because it's through great effort and through failure and through things like that that anybody's gonna get good at anything. Anyone's gonna develop a mastery in something. And so once I started to realize I gotta cheer on the effort, I gotta understand myself that, man, these kids could be good at anything. They just gotta work at it. And I started to apply that same kind of thinking to my own life, and I started to develop skills and push through like resistance in my own life, because I realized, no, I just got to stick with a thing. Man, my kids like really took off when we changed the culture of our home that way. So those are the three things. I highly recommend looking at those things. So I'm not even gonna hold these books up. I'm just gonna put some books in the description that I highly recommend. And one little bonus one is that I fell in love with books which is quite miraculous because I mean, I would be shocked if there's anybody on planet Earth that hates books more than I did when I was, 30, probably 33, 34. Straight up hated books. I remember one time early on in my marriage when my wife and I went to bed, and I'm sitting there and I'm wanting to, I don't know, play video games or watch shows or something like that. And she got out a book. And I was like, yo, what are you doing? And she said, what? I was like, what are you doing? You got a book? She's like, yeah, I like reading. I was like, are you kidding me? How could anybody? And I just was mortified by that. And so I had this strong disdain for reading. But I gotta tell you, like, yeah, change in your life is gonna come down to the effort and the way you apply things. But books open up the world to you. They it's like when you read great books, it's almost like you become friends with these authors, right? You're like peering into their mind. You're like being like becoming one with them almost. And the like I can't even imagine how many hours Jessica Lahey put into putting this book together. I mean, how many hours, how many days, how many weeks, how many months, right? Of time, especially when you think about how much work she put into like all her research and all that, right? All her education, all that stuff that went into this book. It's mind blowing. And I can sit there and for like, 4 or 5 hours or whatever and read a book like this and learn all this stuff that took her, like her life to be able to learn. I mean, geez, it's such a great way to like shortcut and to get ahead in life where you're able to. It's like there's an old saying like stand on the shoulders of giants, right? And you get this better view of things. You get this new perspective. So my bonus to you is to say, read at all costs. Stop scrolling. Even right now, you've scrolled and you found my video. Great. And hopefully it's helpful. Hopefully it'll inspire you. But man, get these books. Read. Improve your own life. Improve your parenting. Start to model to your kids. Don't you want it to be that your kids can look at you? And maybe they already do. So, I'm speaking to me from, 10, 15 years ago and all that. So this doesn't fit every parent, but so excuse me, I'm not trying to knock you or nothing. But I know for me, I wanted to be somebody that my kids could genuinely look up to, not just because I'm their freaking dad, but someone they can genuinely look up to. You know what I mean? And one of the things that I needed to do was I needed to start reading because I needed to start to grow myself. It's amazing what good books will do for you. I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to incorporate that. I can't talk. It's late. I've been up all day. It's been a crazy day. I encourage you to incorporate that into your daily life. I know it'll make a big difference for you, for your children, grandchildren, all that, in ways that I don't even know how to fully express it. It's just like I didn't know in my own life. I'm going to try and give you a little example. I didn't even know in my own life. I used to say this, that my family, the Mosses, and I'm talking about like my mom, my brother, my sister, aunts, uncles, blah, 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 whatever, our clan. I used to think we were some of the most healthy, normal, well-adjusted people on planet Earth. And it was through books that I started to recognize, wait a second. That's it. This isn't right. Why do we do this? Why do we triangulate or something like that? Or why do we gossip? Or why is it that we have all this talent in our family, but no one's really amounting to anything? Like, what is all this stuff? And we're too nice. Even I would say we were too nice. I read this really great book called Less Nice, More You. Fantastic book, and it convicted me so much. Like, I always just wanted to be a nice person, but that nice guy was kind of like sacrificing his own family in certain ways at the altar of being nice. And I'm not getting into that, but I'm just saying, like, I started to discover these things about myself as a man, a father, a husband, son, brother, friend. I started to learn things about the world and how the economy actually works, not what the mainstream media tells you, but like how it actually really works. Some of these things are just mind blowing, and so you can bring that into your home. It's going to take some discipline. It's going to take putting down your phone and putting down the remote control and the controller, the video game controller. It's like, I'm not knocking these things. It's just I swear, I just wish I could get you to understand the importance of like incorporating actual reading into your life. So that's it. Those are the things that I did that I think were really important, that made a huge difference on my children and on my grandchildren that I don't have yet, and my great grandchildren, and so on, where we were able to break a lot of family bondage, a lot of family bondage, a lot of disappointment. Able to break those things, break that track record, and you can do the same exact thing wherever you're at in life. I don't care who you are, or where you live, what city you live in. Man, you just start reading a few really great books, and it can absolutely change your life. I encourage it. Anyway, until next time, take care.